Let's talk to David Schultz. He is from Westlight Images and is here on Main Street, and he's got quite some interesting art, as well as the places you go. The extent you go to get this artwork is incredible. You just got back from Antarctica.
Yes, yeah, that was my fourth trip down. We leave a little port called Ushuaia in Argentina, and this time I was on a Russian icebreaker called the Captain Klebnikov, and it was to get down to the east side of the Antarctic Peninsula in the Weddell Sea to photograph emperor penguins. Cool. It's quite a ride. The Drake Passage is always interesting.
How did you choose Antarctica?
I read a book several years ago on the endurance expedition about Sir Ernest Shackleton, and saw the photography that Frank Hurley came back with, you know, and given the era and what they went through, it was just incredible. And so just became very interested in it and booked passage on a Russian research ship, and then made the right connections with the expedition company, and it's just kind of mushroomed from there. So
did you graduate in this, or is it just a passion that you started?
Just a passion. I got out of high school, decided I want to get out and see as much of the country as I could, and picked up a camera along the way. Ran into a professional photographer out in Washington State and found out that that's what he did for a living, and I thought that that was pretty cool.
Here's some of your artwork on the TV
I could do that
right
for
now.
a living. That's,
well, that was it. Yeah, it's
right.
like, you do this for a living? Cool. You know, I was like 19.
Why not?
Didn't have a clue, and so on my way back to Michigan, I decided that's what I was going to do.
So tell me about this artwork that's on the TV right now.
Okay.
This is from your trip?
Yeah, these are from this last trip. We're looking at an adult emperor penguin and a chick. The chicks are about 2 months old at this point. And if anybody saw March of the Penguins, I think a few people probably have out there, those are the penguins that we were photographing, and they're much more difficult to reach than some of the other penguins that I've photographed, which is many, many penguins.
So is this something you're waiting for? I mean, you kind of have to wait until they go out, they get their food during the day, and then they have to come back? Or is it...
No, you find there's rookeries where the colonies nest for the winter, where the female will lay the egg, then the male stays and hatches it, and then they kind of trade off after the chick is hatched. And what we do with the icebreakers, they get it in as close to the rookery as possible. They run it right into the pack ice and park it, and then you helicopter into a base camp each day, and it's about a 2-mile hike from the base camp to the rookeries, and the rookeries may have, you know, a couple hundred penguins in each little grouping.
And how do they deal with a human being amongst their midst?
It's crazy. You're only, by international Antarctic treaty, you're only allowed to approach them within, you know, about 10 meters, I think it is. So you lay down, and eventually they're just in your lap. I mean, the chicks are very curious, and I had one situation where I had this beautiful iceberg that I wanted to try to get the penguins out in front of. So it took me about an hour and a half laying in the snow, got the chicks up to me, and then I would just keep scooting back until I made my way up the side of this little incline in front of this iceberg, and eventually
that's a cool picture.
Yeah, that you had the male and the female there. They both kind of come back together, because usually you only have one or the other. You know, one will be out feeding and comes back with the food source, and the other one goes back out, so they kind of play tag team and trade off. But
what I like about these images is they're just so calm and peaceful, and the sky is blue, and it's obviously a stark contrast to the lives that, you know, every creature lives in such a harsh environment, yet there's still so much beauty in the scenery as well as the wildlife. So that, to me, is the most impressive thing about the images. To get down there and see the environment and witness the environment firsthand. I mean, I've had, you know, 55-foot seas crossing the Drake Passage this last trip. I mean, I had stitches in my head when I came back, and more black and blue marks, and, you know, so you get beat up. But so there's what you're saying is there's different there's different types of photographers, right?
Oh, I love this one.
You know, in these colonies, you might have 100 or so of the chicks, like you see there. And
it sounds like to me you're getting paid to travel, and then you bring the camera along to make it worthwhile.
Every bit of it is a tax write-off. You know, from my hiking boots to the trips themselves. You know, yeah, it's pretty good gig.
So you have all these images at Westlight Images right now?
I do. I'm just now starting to get this new collection framed up, and they'll be on the wall. A couple of them are right now, but they can be seen on the website for sure right now. And in the next week or so, we'll have most of them up.
And what else do you have at Westlight Images? For people who haven't been up there, tell me a little bit about. I mean, you've obviously gone on other great excursions.
Well, so much of what I do and what I sell is right here in our backyard. I mean, I always joke I'm down in Antarctica, and the majority of the work that I sell are aspen trees in the local mountains, but this is where my passion is traveling and getting out to see these other places. So there are a lot of local images, but then the last about 3 years I've been doing a lot of work in these polar regions, both in the Arctic and Antarctica. Last year at this time I was up in the Canadian Arctic photographing polar bears and spent about 2 weeks out on the tundra freezing my fanny off up there. That was a very cold trip.
Oh my gosh.
At least you didn't have to cross the Drake Passage and get seasick. You're land-based. But
I like the name of the ship you hitched a ride on. What was that again?
Kolebnikov? Yeah, the Captain Kolebnikov. What happened was when the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of these research ships and some of these other working vessels lost their funding, and so they are now getting leased out by these expedition companies to take passengers to these areas. So it's not a Carnival cruise line. They're working vessels, and you could get called, you know, up, especially like this icebreaker. If there was another ship that was in trouble, you know, you're going to head over there to.
So you tag along. It sounds like you get to tag along on some adventures that maybe you didn't plan on sometimes.
I haven't run into a situation like that. I heard on some news crew, I think it was NBC, where they were planning to be out for like 3 days, and they were out there for 2 weeks and still had no idea when, because they just kept getting called out to rescue other vessels or search for people. So, you know,
that'd make it for an interesting trip for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
He has interesting vacations, it sounds like. And of course your dog Coda goes along with you?
Not to Antarctica or the Arctic. I'd love to see her on a beach with 400,000 penguins. And,
she'd love it. She's a friendly dog, so I'm thinking she'd probably love it.
When there's birds around, it's an entirely different animal. But yeah, she does travel with me when I'm just kind of doing road trips or here, and then she's always in the gallery. People probably walk by the gallery and see her laying up in the window. So.
Park City's a dog-friendly town, so
Absolutely.
It's not a surprise when you walk into a
Anywhere.
gallery or anywhere and the owner has the dog with them. It's really not bizarre at all.
Yeah, I get more people that come in the gallery every year and immediately where's Coda, as opposed to what's new on the wall, or yeah, we saw
Where's
your
the
dog
dog?
in the window. And
You've got some competition then. They come in to see you, or do they come in to see Coda?
A little bit of both, and she gets a dog treat for everybody that she lures in.
Oh, good.
And two, if anybody buys something.
She's
so,
a good thing then for you.
You know,
so Westlight Images, where is it at on Main?
It's 738 Main Street. It's down in Lower Main Street in the Marriott Summit Watch Plaza. I've been there for 6 years and on Main Street for about 10 years now. So I encourage everybody to come down and at least take a look and bring your photo questions too.
And come see these incredible images of Antarctica.
Yes.
You just got back. Great place. And what is the number on the website?
It's westlightimages.com, and they can go there. There's actually even some video of some of the trips up on some of the pages there, so you can see firsthand.
I love seeing
what you
pictures
saw.
of travel. I love it. So
Yeah, it's not sure where I'm going to go next. That's one of the funny things is I just come back from a trip and everybody says, "So where are you going next?" I haven't unpacked from the last trip, and I've got 3,000 images of penguins to start editing through to come up with a half a dozen that make it on the wall.
well, it's kind of nice that you just get a pick. What about, do you have a favorite place you've been?
Overall, I mean, Utah is my favorite location to photograph in general, just because of the diversity of the terrain. I mean, the extremes of, southern Utah, and then what we have right here. And when it's in your backyard, you have the opportunity to watch the weather forecast, see when something interesting is maybe about to happen with the weather, and get up to photograph those things. Other than that, it's got to be Antarctica. Yeah, it's when you get down there and you see the wildlife, the remoteness, it's just not a place that everybody gets a chance to see.
Not a lot
Very
of people.
many people
No.
at all.
No, more and more, and people are becoming more aware of climate change and such, and so these polar regions are getting a little bit more attention, especially places where, like Churchill, where I was photographing the polar bears up in Canada. I mean, people are more aware of the plight of the polar bears and any of these cold weather creatures that are being affected. So,
Well, everybody's got to head up then to go and see it. David, thanks so much for coming in.
my pleasure. Appreciate you.
Of course, that is David Schultz of Westlight Images. He just got back from Antarctica, has fabulous images, as you have just seen, up at his gallery, as well as, like you said, Utah has so much diversity. You might want to head up there and see what he's got from Utah. Everybody loves having a painting of Utah,
of course,
or a photograph in their home. So head on up to Westlight Images on Main Street. Stick around, though. We've got more coming up on the Mountain Morning Show, including trivia right after this.